Alright everyone, thought I'd do a little video on this Honda Beat I've had in. Had it in a couple of months ago and it's come back. It's got some rather excellent airbrushing work on it. I'm not sure I'd want to be seen in it, but it's excellent quality work, that's for sure. Now I had it in for a timing belt job and I reconditioned the instrument binnacle because it had got water damaged. And then I got a phone call a week or two ago saying, oh, you know that timing belt job you did on that Beat? Well, it's failed. So I thought, no it hasn't, but I'll get it in anyway. The owner was claiming that the tensioner bearing had failed, and given he supplied the parts and didn't supply a tensioner bearing, my spidey senses were tingling, shall we say. Now I got the car in, got it dropped off on a trailer, and dropped everything to get it in because I've always had that policy with returns, they always come first. They're never me, but I've got to do them first anyway. And I get the key, go to start it, and I get a click from the starter motor. The owner was claiming that the tensioner bearing had failed on the timing belt, which I'm assuming he thought they'd caused the valves to contact and seize the engine. So I tried it a couple more times, put a booster pack on it, still the same, and then I realised the ignition barrel is a bit dodgy. I panicked actually. Thankfully I had the engine cover open, but I managed to get the key out while it was stuck on the start position, and it wouldn't come back, and when I wiggled it the key came out. So I panicked, pulled the battery off thinking it was going to set on fire or something, which it clearly could on something like this if you just left it on start with a seized engine. And then I was able to get the key out at my leisure and fiddle about with it, and I realised that the ignition barrel was actually faulty. So my thought at that point is, right, well the ignition barrel's failed, he's not realised, it's been stuck on the start position, and he's gone for a drive and burnt the starter out. So I did a few more checks, I put it in gear, took the handbrake off, rolled it, yep, sure enough, engine's not seized. I get my power probe out, connected to the battery, watch the meter as I move the ignition onto start. It's not cranking at this point, and sure enough, barely any voltage drop, still nearly 12 volts. So obviously a bit flat, it's been stood a while. So my next step was to get some assistance, and we bump started it and it fired straight up and ran perfect. So I was getting a bit annoyed at this point, since I'd dropped everything and jobs that had been booked in for months to do this job that was supposedly my failure, which clearly wasn't. So my thinking at that point is, yeah, he's damaged the ignition barrel somehow, because it wasn't like that when I looked at it last, and caused this fault all of his own and blamed me, said it cut out on him and it was the timing belt. And this was to the company he bought it off, not to me. So I had to, fix my reputation with that company that I do lots of work for. And, they didn't suspect it was me either, but, my reputation was on the line at that point. He was blaming me. Cheers, mate. Regarding the timing belt job, I'd not done one before, and at first glance it looked pretty tricky. It is actually a Honda engine, not the Suzuki that are often in these little K cars, because it's an anti-clockwise engine, and it's what do they call it? M-Trek? Multi-throttle? Yeah, whatever. Basically a little bike engine. But Honda being Honda, especially Hondas of this era, they're some of the best engineered cars you'll ever find. This unzips. You can then move the window back, unclip all this, three bolts each side, and then there's an access panel and two side panels that can be removed, and you get access to pretty much the whole power plant in there. So it wasn't as bad as first thought, and there was one bit that really surprised me. There was one bolt that looked like it would never come out, and it looked like an engine out job. But when it came down to it, Honda had left a hole in the chassis leg for it to slide into, with a little plastic gripper to hold the bolt in place while you were doing the timing belt. I mean, you just don't get that on German cars. That's some serious engineering, well thought out. So yeah, the timing belt job went pretty flawlessly. So after bumping it off, I got it in the workshop and pulled the starter off, took it to my local starter motor reconditioning place because it was a bit beyond me and I didn't have any parts for it. And sure enough, the starter had internally exploded. It had just shattered inside because he'd been driving around with it at God knows what revs locked on. So I got the starter reconditioned and I managed to repair the ignition barrel. I put a pin in where the little tab had broken off. It should be better than it ever was because it's a steel pin rather than a pot metal. But I won't start it. On a Honda, which a lot of you might know already, is you can't take the key out until you push it in. Now if you force it, you can probably break it if you try hard enough, and which is clearly what's happened. So it's entirely user error, but he's blamed the mechanic, which is a bit annoying really. So he's getting charged extra for the offence and for me having to drop everything at short notice to get this car in. It's not fair. It's not on blaming someone when you don't even know what you're talking about. I mean, I diagnosed it just straight away by listening to it, but yeah, and I was right. So I'm a little offended. So yeah, he's getting a bigger bill, and I think that's only fair. If he doesn't like it, well, slander is a pretty serious offence. Courts love it. So yeah, I thought I'd share my little saga with this little Honda Beat for you. And they're lovely cars to drive. Excellent little things. Really well finished for a low volume car. I'm pretty sure these Gathers dash speakers are rare if they're not standard equipment. I'm not that clued up on these, to be honest. But it's a nice thing. And just to prove to you, absolutely nothing wrong with that. And now the barrel works nicely again. So I guess that will do for this video. If you like this or my other videos, see you next time.